that attend will get to hear important information about disaster unemployment assistance, unemployment insurance and benefits. We'll be talking about that. As small business owners, you're here to hear any support that you need now, but even in the long term, should you have any questions. So welcome. I'm Deborah Caney. I'm the Director of Small Business Center. I first want to introduce Barry Ryan of the Rural Center. He was here 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago? Feels like 2 or 3 weeks ago. He was kind enough to come here as a support under disaster recovery, and he fielded some questions. And at the time, the business owners did have questions about unemployment assistance. So he said, let me set that up for you. And that's what he did. So we have Lockhart Taylor, who is the Assistant Secretary. I'm going to do this slow because you do have a little bit of a long title. Assistant Secretary of the Division of Employment Security for the North Carolina Department of Commerce. Thank you very much. So we also have Jeff Smith, who's a New Bern native, by the way, and you do the appeals for unemployment insurance, correct? And then we have Antoine Keith, who is the Director of Unemployment Insurance Department Division. I'm not sure. Not okay. So we appreciate that they have all come here, to field your questions, educate you. I'm sure they're welcoming any comments or feedback from your experiences, with the process and the benefits. I think there's some new benefits that came out last year, so they'll be talking about that as well, some updates and things like that. So just a couple of things. We have emergency exits on either side of the room here. There are restrooms. Sorry, this will be on your webinar, Barry. Straight out and to your left, and vending straight out and to your right. I guess that'll be anything else I should add here. Okay, well, I appreciate you being here, and thank you.
Or is it audio or visual too? Not going to stand there. Do I? Just the audio. Good afternoon. My name is Lockhart Taylor. I'm with Employment Security. I want to introduce two other quick people here as well that I appreciate being here. George Kramer is with the East Carolina Workforce Development Board, and I want him to speak for a few minutes. If you're not familiar with all the things that they do within this community, I think you'll be shocked to know what type services they offer to small businesses and businesses within the region. So, George, if you would, please.
Thank you, and welcome. Obviously, it's a pleasure to talk about the East region. We represent 9 counties. We start from Wayne County and kind of come down to the coast. And with that in mind, we are responsible to work with the career centers. Each county has a career center, and that has a staff. Our goal is to work with the businesses in the respective counties, understand what their needs are, provide services. The services typically are recruitment, and then connected to that generally is training. And the training, we work with the school systems in both the secondary and the post-secondary to understand what the businesses need and try to make sure that the training skills are adaptable to what the employer is looking for. With that in mind, we have a variety of programs that cover the costs, the expenses of those programs. We're obviously looking to develop programs that will entice the businesses to continue with training programs, as opposed to we just offer one shot of training. The employee then is expected to kind of keep current. We appreciate that's a wonderful goal, but not realistic. So we have to continue to work with the schools as well as the vendors to find out what's available, what we can do to help them. We spend a lot of time out in the counties talking with the businesses, and it's really a relationship role that we have. We understand their need, they understand what we can do and how we can work with them, and then, of course, provide the service. We feel like we're doing a pretty good job. As I was telling earlier, some of the gentlemen, we're kind of appalled, though, every once in a while we hear the businesses, I didn't know you could do that. Didn't know you do that even. We're saying, well, unfortunately, yes, we do a lot of things, and perhaps we don't toot our horns properly as the way we should, but we hope that this evening's conversation will help you to understand what's available through the career centers and the programs that we're working right now. We are handling the Hurricane Florence relief and trying to, of course, find employment for individuals who qualify and could be employed under the program, FEMA's federal funding, and as well, of course, just normal ongoing opportunities for employment. What else I can say other than we're available. So thank you for your time this evening. I'd answer any questions if you have any. Yes, sir. Question was, of course, new programs, new training activities, new options, opportunities, et cetera. What we try to do is understand what the goal is. Is the program to benefit the employer? Is it to engage with prospective employees, candidates? Is it something that would benefit the community at large? What's the goal, and what perhaps is going to be the impact? We have a lot of monies available for training programs. Some of it is restricted, and it's available only perhaps through a college program or curriculum. A lot of it's available through what we call customized training programs, which are focused for the employers to programs that they specifically need. We also have available monies, though, that could be used to kind of promote something that's what we call innovative and something that's going to be an opportunity. So I can't answer your question directly, but yes, we do have monies, and then hopefully, of course, we want to, like every business, I'd rather use your money, but it's our money, it's state money, federal money, taxpayer money, so we have to account for all of it. We want to make sure at the end of the year we did it properly and appropriately. And of course, with that in mind, of course, we'd like to have many people enrolled instead of just a very few. So we try to spread it out and make the best impact. Thank you for your question. Everybody else? Thank you for your time. I'll turn it back.
Thanks. Thank you, George. Appreciate it. Also, want to introduce Beth Bilodeau, who is the assistant manager of the NC Works Career Center. You want to speak for a minute?
Hi, my name's Beth Bilodeau. I'm the assistant manager here in the Craven County office. We're located at 2836 Neuse Boulevard. We're here to assist both employers and individuals seeking employment. What do? We post jobs for you. We can pre-screen. We can provide space for you to interview, do some training. We have computers that are available for individuals to complete online applications, testing, that type of thing, all at no cost. This is your tax dollars at work. Our phone number is 252-514-4828. The office manager's name is Joy Hudson. She was unable to come tonight. We're here to assist you. If you're having problems because you're trying to file attached claims, we can get you in touch with our regional tax auditors. They can help employers. We can also send your name forward just like we are the individuals. Any other time, if you're looking to interview and you need a bigger pool, you are looking to interview in a different area. Hey, we're expanding. We're going to be in, Wayne County. We have offices all over the state. As long as you pre-plan it with the local office manager, they will accommodate you as much as possible. We're open here at our office from 8 to 4:30. We also have offices in Pamlico, Jones, Lenoir, Carteret, we have 97 offices and we have 100 counties. So I'm not sure which offices don't have it. It's probably easier to find that out. Onslow has one. Jacksonville, right on Western Boulevard by the big Home Depot. And Lindsay, the manager there, would love to assist you. Same if you're a large corporation and you have offices throughout the state, we'll work with each other to try and post your jobs. We can post jobs. The only restrictions is that if it's got a restriction, it must be a bona fide occupational qualification. My example, your grandfather is combative and you want a male nurse. It's appropriate. Other than that, we just open it up to everybody. The other thing is veterans. We serve veterans here in North Carolina. All postings, the first 24 hours are only offered to veterans. It doesn't mean that other people can't apply. As soon as that 24-hour vet preference pops, then anybody can apply. But we focus on our veterans. I'm also going to plug in here. We are having our veterans stand down for homeless veterans. I believe it's going to be February 22nd. So if any of you know veterans, have them put it on their list, their calendar. Also, we have 2 veterans reps here in Craven County that serve our veterans. Any questions? 252-514-4828. I know I've given you a lot of information. I do have cards. I'd be happy to hand out cards. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
Appreciate that. I thought it was important that Beth and George were both here because I've been with the agency for 25 years. So I used to work for the Employment Security Commission, which was a whole different structure from what it is these days. The old ESC had about the same number of offices, about 95, 9,700, maybe we even got up over 100 at one point, offices across the state. And you walked in there and you went to the right, you went and filled out UI claims. You went to the left, you went and looked for jobs. Typically what happened is when you applied for unemployment benefits, they sent you back to the left side of the building. And that's when you started your true work search, because the basic tenet of unemployment insurance is that you not only lost your job through no fault of your own, but you're able, available, and actively seeking work. So there was certainly a transition many years ago. Unemployment insurance, we were actually merged with the Department of Commerce. The old Employment Security Commission broke up, and now they have the NC Works Career Centers, which are focusing all of their efforts on finding people jobs, getting people training, getting jobs. And unemployment insurance moved back up to Raleigh for the most part. We tried to develop online systems that would assist people remotely, and we didn't have as many people out in the field. And again, these could become career centers. Do I necessarily agree with that structure? No, I like the old system. I think it allowed the local offices to work very closely within their labor market, within the employer community, get to know their workers, get to know the employers and what their needs were. And when an individual got unemployed, they knew an employer that might need workers. But we are really starting to work closer with the groups. We can still have the best of both worlds. And so that's the reason why I was really happy that both Beth and George were here today, because we have split up and we failed to communicate for many years, but we're going to do a better job of doing that. Unemployment insurance right now and where we are today. We recognize, I spent part of last week down in Wilmington. I went to Burgall last week. I went up to Jacksonville last week. Even though Raleigh didn't really get hit by the storm much at all, I certainly got to see what all was taking place in these communities. And it's terrible. You know, when in 2016, we had Hurricane Matthew. And Hurricane Matthew was certainly a big event. But it kind of hit the coastal areas and the metropolitan areas kind of quickly, and then kind of stalled out over the Wilson, Tarboro, Lumberton area. And that was where it was hit. With Florence, it came in and hit like 5 of the largest metropolitan statistical areas on the East Coast. And the number of employers and employees, workers that were impacted was much greater. Our federal funding, we're funded through the U.S. Department of Labor. We don't receive any general funding here in North Carolina. So our funding is calculated each year in the federal budget, and it's based on what your claims level was from the previous year. Obviously, in good times, you don't need as many workers or as many people doing unemployment claims, so your funding drops. Then when you have bad times, the fundings will go up. We're down about 15%, 10 to 15%, I think we calculated on our staffing levels from even when Matthew hit. So we're basically had our funding levels set for about a 4%, 4 to 4.5% unemployment rate. We were taking about 2,000 to 2,500 claims per week. We were developing a new automated computer system to replace our 35-year-old mainframe system, and which was held together with baling wire there for a long period of time, but it certainly worked, but it got us through the 2008 recession. And Florence came in. We've, to date, since Florence, we've taken almost 33,000 claims. Our call center, which was averaging about 3,000 calls a week, ended up getting around how many per week? 8,000 calls a week.
So last week,
Okay.
calls this week.
It's dropping slowly. But we're dealing with some volume that we weren't prepared for. It's also a situation where you couldn't bring in staffing fast enough because you've got to go through background checks with the personal information that's contained in claims. And we didn't have the outstation staff that we have with employment security or tax auditors, fraud investigators, quality control, appeals referees, all individuals that don't necessarily handle claims. We thought it was very important that we did have at least some of our staff. So we had a lot of our tax auditors, because we had suspended tax audits right after the storm. That was the last thing I think employers really wanted, was to have one of our tax auditors show up while they're still trying to clean up following a storm. And so they came into the local offices and offered their assistance, but they still weren't claims people. But it's pretty indicative as to how the whole agency has had to operate. We've got individuals whose normal roles are in tax who are keying claims right now because we're still taking some paper claims. I'm not offering any of this as an excuse in any way for the fact that we still have a long ways to go. We have not paid enough people at this point. But like I said, we've taken 33,000 claims, and already we've paid out how much in benefits, over 10 million in benefits. And we've got a new computer system. And right now that computer system seems to be working. We've got some bugs. You're always going to have a few bugs with the new computer system. But right now we think it's working. We've had some login issues, some PIN reset issues, and we've had a general familiarity with an old system that we were accustomed to. And we may not have enough information out there as far as tutorials in order to get us through this. But I'm here tonight and want to offer y'all whatever resources you may need in order to get through this. And so I'm going to, at this point, turn it over to Antoine Keith. Antoine is Chief of Benefits, as he had said, and been with UI program for many, many years, and doesn't know a darn thing about Eastern North Carolina. And let him talk a little bit more about UI and disaster unemployment as far as the specifics are concerned.
It's a running joke. I really don't know. Past east of Raleigh, I'm a little bit lost. And I grew up in Durham, but a lot of my time has been spent in the western part of the state. I used to manage the Charlotte offices. I used to manage Winston-Salem. I used to manage the old Shelby Employment Security Commission offices. And I've been on 2 workforce development boards. So I will tell you, if you get a chance to utilize them, put them to work. And if you're expanding or if you need some training, that's the best place to start and see what they got to offer. And they're working with the community college and all of the agencies in your community. So disaster unemployment insurance, it's essentially just temporary monetary assistance for individuals who became unemployed or had their work interrupted due to a presidentially declared disaster. We had Hurricane Florence declared. 28 counties were identified. 3 counties were just added last week. Union, Anson, and Orange counties. I know where they are. So it's a big storm. You know, Hurricane Florence is a big storm. Obviously, you know, the secretary told you of the overwhelming volume that have come through. So far, we have taken over 11,511 claims that are associated with the disaster. We've paid out just under $2 million to those individuals, for those individuals who've been affected by the disaster. When it comes to the first step for disaster unemployment insurance, you must file for regular unemployment, regular state unemployment. If you're eligible for regular state unemployment, then a couple of things happen. One, we will waive the wait week, okay, which is normally a week that you just get no money for. Under any other circumstance, you would get no money for it. If you're out of work 1 week, you still would get no unemployment because the wait week could be classified as your waiting week. But that would be waived, so you would get benefits if you're out of work due to the disaster. And then the other thing is your work search. Once again, if you're out of work due to the disaster, the work search will be waived. You would not have to seek work, okay? And we have expanded that to include those other individuals in your community who are already on unemployment insurance temporarily to waive their work search. Did that for the first few weeks. We'll probably reinstitute the work search in the next week or 2, but temporarily, just because if half the folks are dealing with flooding, then obviously the other half must be also. And so it's sort of ridiculous to expect people to be looking for work in the midst of trying to get out of this situation. The secretary told you about the call line, the volumes very high, but at the same time, we've been working 10, 12-hour days. I got staff working Saturdays and Sundays. We're pushing through as much as we can. We do see that the volume is coming down a little bit. Back in the day when we had our old mainframe, I was talking with Beth, and we had to pay when it came to disaster unemployment, pay by paper check, which is sort of crazy. You know, you try to give a check to a person in the midst of a disaster. So if your mail is not running, you still can't get your money, right? So with the new system, we can do direct deposit or a debit card, same as we do for regular unemployment insurance. With the old system, when it came to disaster unemployment, everything was by paper. Everything was by paper. You literally filled paper out, you send it in. When we send stuff back out to you, you do what's called a weekly certification. You fill it out, you mail it back into us. It comes to my crowd. We do some little magic and put it together as far as how much you're going to get paid. We send it upstairs, and they're the ones that cut the check. They send it back downstairs to the mail room, and they're the ones that mail it out each day. That's what it used to occur. So with the new system, you just go online. You go online and you do your weekly certification. So far, over 75,000 individuals have been online doing their weekly certifications. So 75,000 weekly certifications have been sent, processed within the new system. Also within the new system, we're trying desperately to get away from the paper. You can do your weekly certification online, or you can do it through IVR. Certainly, we've had some user errors on both sides, on the staff side and as well as on the other side. But we're trying to work through those as quickly as, and as efficiently as possible. If you're one thing that for the employers, if you're an employer and a person is out of work due to a declared disaster, your account would not be charged. Your account would not be charged. If it is charged, give me a buzz. Let's get it squared away. Yes, sir. Right. So the question is, you've already received notification in the mail that individuals are applying for unemployment insurance, and you want me to verify out loud your account will not be charged. I see. Okay. But yeah, that's exactly right. And I solemnly swear. Yeah, the question is, why are the questions that are being asked for you to respond to seemingly don't really apply to the week or two that your employees were out of work due to the disaster? And quite simply, the simple word is that it's the same questions for everything. It doesn't change as far as there's regular lack of work or discharge or quit. It's just the same questions, unfortunately. Yeah, yeah, it's the same system. Well, if you give us crappy answers, well, yeah, but if it doesn't apply, then just say so. I mean, that's fine. That's fine. That's fine to say it doesn't apply. Um, because like one of the things that we run into now is the fact that we get in applications and we have to backdate them. So you get applications from individuals that have already gone back to work. And one of my crowd was telling me yesterday that, well, they have the date, the last day of work as being the same day as the day they went back to work. And I was talking to South Carolina because we've been using South Carolina to help us out. And they said, well, think about it. It could be true. If they're just trying to apply for something 2-3 weeks ago, they were out of work then. They're back at work now. So if you ask them when's the last day you worked, well, today, right before I started filling this out, it was the last day that I worked. Um, so and I understand when you say that it doesn't really apply. And it's one of the big drawbacks is that our system went live a week after the hurricane hit. So we're having to deal with a lot of paper applications and put them back into the system after the fact. And that, if we could have just kicked it up a week, but we will not do anything before it's time. Yes. Before the new system came online. Okay. Yeah.
And I just, that seems to be kind of like, and you have a conflict,
Right.
and I don't really know how to proceed, like I'm off.
Well, I'll tell you.
Works and they pass my.
Right. Well, we'll cut to the chase and let me give you my number. And it's for anybody, 919-707-1422. 919-707. Huh? Ask for Lockhart. 919-707-1422. My name's Antoine. Give me a buzz and let me see what we can do. Yes, ma'am. Right. Yeah, so yeah. So two things. So the question being, I applied and I thought I was going to be turned down. Then you would be applying for disaster unemployment, but you were not turned down. So you got all the work search documentation in the mail. So when it comes to unemployment insurance, state always pays before federal. Disaster unemployment insurance is strictly federal. Regular state unemployment insurance is that amount that you put in. If you're self-employed and you have been paying in on yourself, then when you apply for regular state unemployment, it's going to set up. It'll set up and you'll still get the same documentation that anyone that worked for you would receive. But when it comes to the work search, we waive that. As long as you're out of work due to the disaster, we would waive that work search automatically. We would not require you to produce a work search. We would waive that waiting week. We would not require you. If your waiting week has not been paid out, then give me a buzz. Yeah, give me a buzz. Let's get it together. Okay. Yeah, so get and let me just you can trash those forms. Okay? You can trash those forms. And I promise you you will not be caught by the work search police. You can trash those forms. What it is that exactly right. They're going to come out to you because you know, as the gentleman said, it's the safe system. So it's going to come out to you. But you do not have to be looking for work. When you're out of work due to a federally declared disaster, the state of North Carolina has put it in the state law that you do not have to look for work if you're out of work due to a presidentially federal declared disaster. Okay? 11,500, no. Yeah, 11,500, 13,511. $1.197 million have been paid out from claims that have been filed, federally declared disaster. So close to $2 million. So, right. So what happens is that when the question being, will you be compensated for the money that you lost from your business? Or are you going to be compensated based on whatever's been reported as you've earned? And the answer is you're going to be compensated based on what was reported that you earned. When it comes to DUA or unemployment insurance, the maximum in the state of North Carolina is $350. That's it. That's the max. So, and if you have any earnings during that week, you have to report those earnings, and you have something called an earnings allowance. Whatever you report over that earnings allowance comes dollar for dollar out of that $350 if you're getting the max. So right now, the earnings allowance, if you were getting $350 a week from unemployment insurance, the earnings allowance would be $70. So say you earned $100, you reported it, $30 would come out of that $350. Okay. Yeah. So and the thing about it is that if that state UI sets up, that's what it has to be. We don't go back and forth. If you exhaust that regular state unemployment insurance, then you can go to DUA, disaster unemployment insurance. But once again, it's going to be calculated. You know, the max will be 350. If you, yeah, you're right. You hit it on the head. You hit it on the head. It's the same. It's the same. The max is going to be the same. The minimum is 130 if you're working full time. If you're working less than full time, it'll be less than 130. So, for regular unemployment, you can get that for 12 weeks. Disaster unemployment, 12 weeks. That's the maximum in the state of North Carolina. For disaster unemployment assistance, it's 27 weeks. Now, let me clarify this statement because when I said this before to some of my staff, they was thinking, oh, you get 12 weeks plus 27 weeks. No, the disaster time frame could be 27 weeks. So if you're on regular unemployment insurance, then you're taking up some of that time frame. And when that disaster period ends, which is 6 months down the road, everything stops. If you're on disaster unemployment, it ends. Okay? So if you were only on it for 5 weeks, that's it. Right. So so the question being, you can transition from state to federal and back to state. How does that occur? So did I say that I don't really know a whole heck of a lot about Eastern North Carolina, other than the barbecue, obviously? So I'll use the Outer Banks because the Outer Banks comes up every year, and that's easy for me to know. So the Outer Banks, they have a certain period of time out of the year where everything shuts down, and most of those individuals are going to be filing for unemployment insurance. And because unemployment only lasts for 3 months, most of them exhaust their unemployment insurance. So take, for instance, this Hurricane Florence. The Outer Banks was one of the first areas that did mandatory evacuation, right? So you could have had individuals that would have came from the Outer Banks and maybe they had a little bit of money left on regular state unemployment. Maybe they had a week or two. They exhausted that 1 or 2 weeks. Then they would go on to the federal disaster unemployment assistance program. Then at a certain point, unemployment insurance is good for 1 year. So it's 1 year. When that year ends, you would have to, if you're still unemployed, you have to file a new claim. And the system will see if it will set up, yay or nay. If it sets up, then you start back over on unemployment insurance. So they could have gotten 1 or 2 weeks from their state unemployment, went on to disaster unemployment for a few months. Then at the end of December, they could have flipped back to regular state because their claim that they started December 2017, it ended. Now it's time for a brand new year to start. So, right. We know that doesn't happen. If so, and of course, this happens a lot during disasters. Why? Because disaster it's kind of an individual sport, right? Because nobody's in your household to know what's going on in your household, necessarily living on your street, or so you have been out of work for 2 weeks. You reopen. The employer reopens their shop. You come back to work. You call everybody and let them know to come back to work. You have 1 or 2 people that don't show, or maybe they call you, maybe they don't. And the reason why they are not showing is because, hey, dude, my whole home is going down the river and I'm still trying to get it together. Or I don't have transportation to come to work. I was traveling 40 miles. I don't have the transportation because my car was flooded, and I'm trying to get a new car. In that instance, what would occur? Because 9 times out of 10, they're on regular state unemployment for the disaster. We would disqualify them at that point. If you contact us and say, Antoine, I got 2 people, we called back to work, they did not show. If you call us, then we would thought he was trying to get another job. If you call us, then we would go out and we would disqualify those individuals based on regular state unemployment law. But then they would transition over to the disaster unemployment. Now, what happens on disaster unemployment? At a certain point, you can't keep saying, I'm waiting to get my car squared away. Okay? At a certain point, it doesn't, because at a certain point, the expectation is that surely you have devised a way of going back to work after X amount of weeks. And so at that point, we will ask those additional questions. And if it's still the case, we'll disqualify them. They can appeal it. It'll go to Jeff's team and he'll hold a hearing and he'll make a decision. But, and we have to rely on you, the employers, to inform us that this individual is, I'm back open for business. They're not here. We have to rely on you, the employers, to let us know. Is there a certain length of time that you have to hold a position open? As far as Division of Employment Security, no. It's, if you have certain policies or rules, then that's up to you. But we don't have any sort of say that says, I couldn't come back to work on Monday. I showed up on Tuesday. They had already replaced me. We'll just take it as is, make a decision, and go from there. Yes. Yeah. What yeah. What is the employer's responsibility to their employees? So they call you back to work, they're only working you part-time hours, and there's no rhyme or reason when those hours might occur. They just call you in the morning or whenever and say, hey, can you come on in? And the reality is that once again, we don't have any say in that. Um, you would expect, employers to do the right thing and try to give you as much lead time as humanly possible. But I've worked all around the state. I've seen employers who folks found out they were out of a job when they showed up at 7 a.m. because the gate was locked. 300 individuals, including HR. So, we can't legislate good behavior on employers' part. But and so when it comes to part time, as far as the unemployment insurance is concerned or disaster unemployment is concerned, it's just a matter of reporting your earnings. Report your gross earnings each week. Keep it moving. All right.
This is kind of a general question. I've lived in
So I'm gonna do the thing. I'm gonna repeat your question. This is an at-will state. It confuses you because an employer can let you go for pretty much any reason, as long as they're not discriminating. And how can an employee receive benefits based on that? I'll let Jeff answer that question because he was dying to jump in, and I could tell.
That's an excellent question. Any other questions? Um, yeah. It, it is similar. I mean, the primary explanation behind why that scenario you described can exist is because the question of whether or not you can, if you're an employer, whether or not you can fire someone is not the same question as whether or not a person can get unemployment insurance. Legally, in an at-will state, North Carolina is not the only state, you can separate someone for any reason that you want as an employer, as long as Antoine pointed out it's not violating a state or federal law, which there are very few. Discrimination is primarily one of them. And by the same token, an employee can quit for any reason they want to without having to give any kind of special notice. But the question we look at in terms of unemployment insurance is based on the reason for separation, is the person entitled to benefits? And the law spells out a whole different set of categories and circumstances in which you can or can't get benefits. So basically, the answer is they're two separate things. They may be related to the very same issue. You may fire someone because they're insubordinate to you as if you're the owner or a supervisor. And everybody would agree with that. That's a bad example. Let's do a different one. You may discharge someone because you just don't think they're a good fit for your organization. That legally you can do whatever you want to, but when you come in and you're one of your former employees applies for unemployment insurance and you say the very same thing, we have to look at what you've told us in terms of, is that a good enough reason under the under the employment security law, which deals with UI, and the answers to those are very different sometimes. Right.
how
Not necessarily. I mean, the difference would be in the scenario you just described as an employer, you wouldn't have to keep any of that documentation if you didn't want to. Because the law allows you to separate someone for, again, pretty much any reason you want. End of story. When it comes to unemployment insurance, then we start asking, more in-depth questions about what's the reasoning behind it. That's why you want to keep records to establish that you had a good cause or that you followed your rules. That these were the policies. I made all my employees aware of the policies. They signed for them. You knew you couldn't steal. You can't get in fights. You can't be insubordinate. You can't do all those things that employers include in handbooks. Those are things you do because of not just unemployment insurance, but because of other things. But legally, you can fire someone for pretty much any reason. So I'm not trying to avoid the question, but in my mind, and maybe I've just done this for too long, those really are two different things. A lot of times we get in our hearings, we'll have an employer who'll come before us and they'll have fired someone, and for an employee who had worked there for 15, 20 years, and we can tell from the very beginning they're trying to convince us that they had a really good reason for letting the person go. And often that's not necessarily the most helpful thing in a hearing because, again, it's not a moral question. Would you have done the very same thing? It's based on the law. Is this misconduct in connection with the work? And those are often the only questions that we're able to really look at in a hearing.
To the same degree, we have in a lot of situations an employer that will contact us and say, hey, I let so-and-so go, but it's okay. We want you to go ahead and pay them unemployment. We're not going to challenge the unemployment. And we're going to say, it's still not your decision. We have to base whether that individual is eligible based on the facts regarding the separation, whether you challenge it or not. There are individuals who will come in and an employer doesn't respond to the notice of claim, and the person may get denied, and then the claimant's the only person who shows up at a claims hearing, and we can still deny that individual even though the employer didn't challenge it.
And Jeff's a lawyer, so he his response is gonna be a little bit different. But the basic premise, you got to become unemployed due to no fault of your own, and you walk into the office one day and they say you're just not working out, for whatever reason. I don't think you're working out. Okay. You haven't done anything. You was working to the best of your abilities, and it's your prerogative to let them go because you certainly can. That's, yes, ma'am. I will tell you, you probably got some folks from Jacksonville, Florida that was putting a claim to Florida saying I was up there. Let me get my money. And what happens when it comes to disasters? Everybody files a claim. And so we have to take, when you get that message, you put back in there that person was let go, and you'll have to put your date in there, and you just, the same way you do any other time, put the information in there. If you want to give me a buzz to make certain, I will be more than happy to grab that call because we want to make certain that everybody's paid properly. Because not only do we not charge that employer that they last worked for, we're not going to charge an employer in that base period if this individual is out of work due to the disaster. So we want to make certain that we get this right. So, yes.
Doing something and
What-
because if they're not,
What is it,
everybody's getting something.
what is it, which part of the system are they having difficulty? Is it just getting in general, or?
At the beginning, it was the people,
Okay,
and to be honest,
okay. Yeah, that's good.
don't get her in trouble because.
No, no.
I did not use her name.
Yeah. Good, good.
She's amazing. Gate gets no fly.
And you know, it's interesting you brought that up because one of the things we were discussing on the ride down here is how long would it really take us to generate a 2-minute YouTube video? We have some YouTube videos on our website already, but keeping track of exactly what issues people like you are having, go ahead and working it out in a YouTube video to show you step by step as to how to get through it. And that would help familiarize you with it. So that, like I said, we were just discussing that on the ride down as one way that we could. You want to come star in the first one?
Without, and then trying to deal with floods and.
Right, right.
They said, oh, it's FEMA.
Yeah, let's, so two things. Let me say two things. If you're self-employed, you are going to get paperwork as the claimant and as the employer. You're going to get both paperwork because you're putting down your company as the employer. So you're going to, yeah, so you're going to get the paperwork for both. I mean, that's just, yeah, you'll get the paperwork because you are the actual employee as well as the employer. So you're going to get that. You're going to get both. Um, we got some new folks. Obviously, somebody, if they think FEMA's cutting checks for unemployment insurance, that's not right at all. But as far as documentation, especially if you went on in the mainframe wasn't set up to take any documentation. So the mainframe, all it did was you stuck information in, and then you had to, anything else, you had to send it someplace. I had to send it someplace. So if so we do have a backlog on some of that information that we got pre the new system. So we do have a backlog on some of that information, which is why you might have been asked for the same information again. And so that's one of those things that I can take care of. I can take care of that. Yes, ma'am. 707-1422. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's 1422. Yeah, 1422. Yes, ma'am. No such thing as late. No, she's making reference to when you're self-employed, um, you file for regular UI, then you have to file for DUA. So in the system today, you would do both at the same time. In the old system, 3 weeks ago, all it would allow you to do is just the regular UI, which it would come up zeros because you haven't paid any unemployment insurance tax on yourself, right? So at that point, that's when it asks you to fill out this additional paperwork, and then you have to send it in to us. Then you have to send in, when it comes to self-employment and disaster unemployment insurance, you have to send in documentation to prove A, that you're self-employed, and B, what your earnings were. We're going to calculate how much disaster unemployment assistance that you will receive based off that paperwork. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Take my number down and give me a buzz because that doesn't happen. We don't we don't check with the IRS. It's well, right, right. And I don't want to go too far into those weeds, but yeah, get my number and let's get 919. Okay. You don't have to make up excuses for them. I'm gonna find out what their name is. So you don't have to make up no excuses. Yeah, yeah, and we have. We and yes, sir. So the question is, you got to pay the tax man, and for unemployment insurance, you get the option of having taxes deducted from your check, And for disaster unemployment, you get the option of having taxes deducted from your check. Nothing is certain but death and taxes. For people that are filing
Yeah, like,
due to the hurricane?
yeah, like I never thought.
So what happens is that those forms that you get asking for reason for separation, when you send that form back in and you're identifying that the person's out of work due to this disaster, then we take it, it goes to my adjudication crowd, they plug in what they need to plug in to get the person paid, then it goes over to our charging crowd, and they're gonna plug in to ensure that those employers in that base period don't get charged for this point, which is
This year, not next year?
right.
Okay.
For that time period. If it's 2 weeks, it's only 2 weeks now. But which is why it's important that you let us know if you were, if the person, and for disaster unemployment, it's federal anyway. So there is nothing to be charged for disaster unemployment. We're strictly talking about state unemployment. Which is why it's important to let us know, hey, we're back open. Everybody's back except these two people. Then we'll go through and we'll make the calls out and find out what's going on. Why aren't you back at work? And if they, and we might possibly disqualify them based on state unemployment insurance laws. And then they would have to transition into DUA and they would have to go through that process. Yes, ma'am. As far as going back to work? Right. Yeah, in that situation, it's just a call to us, to our employer call center. Honestly, it's just a call. Or you can email us. Well, right. So as far as like employers filing for the claim for your employees, um, our state law was changed a few years back so that we have some very specific rules that dictate whether or not you can file for your employees. You can still file for your employees. You just have to prepay. You can only do it for 6 weeks. You only do it one time out of the year. You can, and you must be up to date on your taxes. Yeah, I mean, trust me, I'll be leading that parade. Yes, ma'am.
Area that is.
So, so two things. So the individuals that work for you who are back at work, but you just don't have to work for them. Right. So in that situation, it's the same as hers in that they can still be filing for unemployment. They just need to report their gross earnings each week to see whether or not they might get anything. The individual that has moved falls into the category of I'm back open. This person is not available to come back to work with me. So you let us know because I would imagine 9 times out of 10, they're probably filing for unemployment. And so we want to make sure that we get that squared away. Yes, sir. So 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 the disaster timeframe begins when the president signs it, and they will issue a date to the state to say this is when this disaster started. So they signed it on September the 7th. North Carolina uses a Sunday as the beginning dates of our week. So the first Sunday after the 7th was September the 9th. So the first time anybody could file on this particular disaster in the state of North Carolina was for the week beginning September the 9th. Exactly. Exactly.
Nice job, Antoine. Listen, I mean, we drove 2 hours down here, and I couldn't think of a better use of our time. And I mean that as sincerely as I possibly can. The only way we get better is finding out how this is causing issues for y'all. So I'm not sure Antoine totally thought about the fact that this is going to go out on a podcast to another million people when you gave out your telephone number. That was. We're gonna. I do, as earlier, we do have Jeff Smith here, and we'll stick around and we'll answer each one of your individual questions for any other specific questions that you didn't bring up here. We'll get your contact information. We'll give you our contact information. But I really, really appreciate y'all being here and letting us hear. And I promise you, we've got our foot on the gas right now, just as hard as we can. It may not be nitro right now, but believe me, we're going to keep it on the pedal until we get the last person taken care of. So, sure. Oh, well, yeah, yeah. You do realize we're still government, so um, yeah, somebody's got to stay in business, keep the postal service in business. I would. I want to see this. I want to see that because I want to make sure it's not a glitch in the system. But I'm not familiar with the same forms going out in 3 separate envelopes. That's that. Yeah, let's take a look at them though. I do want to see them. Yes, ma'am. Anybody else? We'll stick around just as long as we can. Thank you very much. I want to thank the Rural Center very much. Yeah. Look at that. That's right.